This Passion, which we just heard, is considered the greatest story ever told. But when you think about it, it's actually a story about failure. Here, Jesus, for 3 years, has been trying to convince the people about how much God loves them. And yet what happened is the people then crucified Jesus. He died because of that love. Not that failure is always a bad thing. For those of you who work out in a gym, and you're doing your weights, you pump weights, and the idea is that you lift weights until you fail. That's how your muscles grow. Think of it in science. When scientists are working on a project or a theory, what they try to do is they try to fail, so they can grow and they can learn from their failures. Those of you who pride yourselves as good chefs, good cooks, many of you tell me that the reason you're so good is because you've had many failures. You've tried this, that doesn't work. You've tried that, that's not going to. You've grown from it. Or think of our recent Winter Olympics. Some of the real stars say the reason they are so good is because they fell down so much. They learned from their failures. Still, so many of us, we try to avoid failing. And then we don't learn from what failing can do for us. Now, there is a psychologist. His name is Abraham Maslow. He did a study on self-actualizing people who really have their act together. What he found out is that consistently the most important lesson which forced changes in a life outlook on these people and consequently changed everything they did came about because of tragedies or deaths or trauma. So here's a question for all of you to ponder this week. As we go through this whole week of recognizing what Christ did for us, there are 2 questions for you to think about. One is to ask yourself, what do you fear most in your life right now? Second question, if you knew the end result would be okay, what would you change in your life? Or what would you do differently? Again, what do you fear most? And what would you change if you knew the outcome would be okay? Now, as you know, we always have the homilies in our kiosk there, and you can always find the homily in our parish website, written out and also videotaped. So you can review it if you can't remember those questions. But indeed, there have been lots of studies, there's a lot of books, there's a lot of quotes on failure. One that I like a lot says that learn to fail, or you will fail to learn. Isn't that good? Let me say it again. Learn to fail, or you will fail to learn. But a lot of those quotes and books and theories, what they're really missing is one key component, one that we are invited to as people of faith. And that's the God component, the God factor. In the fact that the story doesn't end as we just heard it here. The story doesn't end just on the cross. There's more. And so many times what happens for us in our own failures, we think that's the end of the story. We think that's it. I can't do anymore. I can't try anymore. Well, what we're invited to do is to recognize the whole story. God's whole plan for us in our lives. So you are invited, all of you, to come and join us for all the liturgies we're doing at Holy Thursday, Good Friday, and Easter. Some of you have never had a chance. You've been too busy or had excuses. Well, maybe this is the year. Join us. Now, there's an insert in your bulletin this week. It explains everything in detail. But briefly, Holy Thursday is a service where we remember how we are called to serve one another. We have the grand foot washing, and people there are invited to wash each other's feet. And then, of course, on Whole Thursday, we remember the whole Paschal feast here at the altar, commemorating the Last Supper, what Jesus did for us. On Good Friday, we have a service at noon. And that's a service where, again, we hear about the Passion, but we hear John's version. Today we heard Mark's version. It's a little bit different. But still, we are invited to look at the suffering of Christ and how that relates to our own suffering and what it means for us. Friday night is called the Tenebrae, the Good Friday Tenebrae service. It's a service of shadows, of darkness, different than the noon service. So time again we hear scriptures and we have the whole church going dark as we recognize what happened after the crucifixion and as we wait. And then on Saturday night is the big feast of what's called the Easter Vigil. It starts in darkness where we left off on Friday. We hear again God's work throughout all history. We light candles to kind of guide us in our way. And then what happens is we celebrate with those people who are becoming Catholic. We have one person who's called a catechumen. He's going to get baptized. We got 4 others who will be confirmed that night. And all of them initiated into the Catholic Church. It's a huge celebration, big time. And then afterwards we're having this big party downstairs with all of them, which we're all invited to celebrate with them. Sunday, then, we have our services of resurrection. Service of new life. We finally get to say the A word, finally. Because it's a new possibility. No longer stay in our darkness, our doubt. So your challenge this week is to pray along with the church. If you can't join us, well then at least look up the scriptures. They're always in the bulletin and online. Pray what the readings are about, the scriptures are being looked at and prayed upon throughout the whole world. But join us if you can. And in the meantime, take your quiet time. Don't make this just a normal week. Whatever your Lent thing was, well, step it up. Do more. Really hunker down. So that this week has power in you. And then again, I challenge you in your prayer time. As you and God talk about, what do you fear most in your life right now? And if you were going to know everything's okay, what changes would you make in your life right now? We are called to imitate Jesus. We learn how to fail so that we won't fail to learn. Please stand.